So thanks for joining me today, Jonathan. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
So, to kind of kick things off, I'd love to hear kind of more about what you're doing. So just a little bit about your background, type of clients you're helping, and yeah, we can then dive into kind of, biggest sales problems, of which there are many. But yeah, feel free to kind of just give us a background.
Sure. So my background actually started in the one place or the one thing I never wanted to do, which was sales. I told myself coming out of college, as like the one thing I never want to do, I never want to be that annoying sales guy. And I just compared myself to, the likes of just automotive dealers, unfortunately. Sorry for anyone in that space. But at any rate, yeah, I got into sales working for a government reseller selling security software to the US government for kind of my first job out. And then that kind of led into a whole lot of different tech sales types of jobs. So I did everything from, SDR to AE to sales manager. So I really kind of got to see kind of the full flow on the sales side. And frankly, one could say that, majority of SDR is actually reporting into marketing. So really SDRs are almost more a marketing function for a lot of B2B SaaS companies. But then, I started getting in and worked for some big companies like MicroStrategy and Tableau, but then pivoted more so into early stage startups and started working for a Swiss-based company, Teralytics, as well as another VC-backed company, Stitch Labs out of San Francisco, that was actually recently acquired by Square. And really getting into the weeds on those companies and having a lot of fun, honestly, just working in the early stage space where I've got a title, but you're doing a lot of different things all at the same time. And I was enjoying that a ton and still do. So I've really made a huge kind of mark in that space. And now, between after Stitch, kind of where I am now and what's been going on, I started a B2B SaaS company, Auto Lead IQ, which was 2018, 2019, kind of the early portion of 2019. And we were doing pretty well. We were, growing clients and things like that. But as, we started launching out one of our kind of first prototypes and getting that going, it was literally right around the time before COVID. And it was a product basically that was just to kind of back up, it was a conversion rate optimization platform for automotive dealers to essentially have better message match between the ads that they were launching on Facebook, Google, wherever, and what was actually seen on their website. So a lot of them were sending them from like ad to homepage, and there was no offer, right? You wouldn't even see that the Toyota Camry that I clicked on is actually on the website itself. So, so anyway, we were doing well, but yeah, COVID really kicked us in the ass, and so one thing led to another, and we decided to kind of turn that business off, and maybe potentially it'll reignite it. But we lost a lot of our clients when COVID hit, because everyone was, of course, furloughed and dealerships were closed. So then that led to launching Omni-Lab Consulting, which is a demand gen agency, and we've been working with B2B SaaS companies ever since. So that was kind of all my background, all my network, and I just said, hey, well, I mean, I've seen how a lot of these guys are scaling. I've seen some of the mistakes some of them are making. So, I kind of threw my hat in the jar and said, all right, well, I'm going to see what I can do to help some of these guys. So we offer a whole range of different services on email marketing, paid media, analytics, and web dev. So that's kind of what I'm up to right now.
Thanks for that intro. And is there specific areas along the sort of buyer's journey that you guys focus on?
So I'd say we're definitely focused all the way down to revenue at the end of the day. So really it's the full funnel minus the only thing we're not touching is after someone becomes a customer and starting to worry about retention. So it's, we took the approach of saying, listen, like a lot of agencies were measuring, leading indicators like number of clicks and leads and MQLs and things like that. But what we really wanted is we wanted to actually understand how many of those were actually leading to marketing source pipeline and also revenue. What was the CAC and CAC payback from some of these leads, and did it make sense, some of the activities that we're doing? Because we realized that, when we weren't doing those things, a lot of times it was driving the wrong actions on the top of the funnel and pushing down crap down through the funnel. And me being a sales guy, I saw this firsthand, right? And they're like, oh, it's an MQL, it's good to go. And I get on the phone and it's not even in our ICP. There's no intent. It's just the wrong, it's just completely, not good, right? But, marketing has a quota to fill on the MQL. So there you go. There's your problem. But no, we focus on the full funnel.
Yeah,
So
no, amazing. So maybe the first kind of starting point that I thought would be good to kick off with is giving your kind of experience across B2B SaaS at different stages. Yeah. What do you see as the biggest sales problems for early stage, and we can run through the sizes, from Series A onwards. But yeah, thinking about startups, what are the
yeah.
biggest problems you see there?
So with early stage and seed, the biggest ones that I see are, well, one big one, and I actually posted about this on LinkedIn not too long ago, but a lot of times a group of very smart, proficient engineers, developers got together and built an awesome product and maybe even raised a little bit of money. But they hadn't talked to any customers. So they've got this product now that they've got to bring to market, but they haven't had any customer feedback, no beta users, no nothing. And they're trying to figure out how they can sell this thing and market it. And that's one of the biggest things I see with a lot of startups is that they have not taken an approach of making sure the customer is actually part of that conversation from literally day one,
Mm,
and then making sure that that feedback loop is being driven into some of the product decisions that are being made to make sure there's actually something there, something real. So I think
mm,
that's one. Another one that's common, and we work with a lot of early stage SaaS startups. Some of the ones just churn, right? So commonly in the beginning, there's a lot of churn. There's maybe not even a customer success team that's set up. They don't have product analytics potentially well set up, or they're not really tracking it at a deep level or deep enough because of potentially resource constraints. So they're losing a lot of clients and trying to kind of drive more people in. And then the last is, really just hiring good talent. I mean, when you're a new brand, especially a first time, maybe second time founder, hiring great, either A's or SDRs, if you're at the stage of hiring those types of resources, is tough to find the right people.
mhm.
So I think it requires, obviously building those relationships over time and really getting them in there. So I think that's early stage and seed, but maybe pass it over to you. Any of your thoughts on that? And I can kind of go down the chain here.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I think it's coming back to, for me, always this: why should anyone buy the product?
Yeah.
And that requires customer feedback and an understanding of what problem it's solving, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
the startups that generally are more successful hitting the ground running are ones that run focus groups, or they might be part of an accelerator where they're actually sat down with who they're actually trying to sell the product to, and they have that iteration and that process that they run through. And I think, again, from experience of working with companies that have and haven't done that, I've almost sat down and looked at it and gone, there's almost like a not a relief, but there's like
Yeah.
like I'm going to be able to market this because it's addressing a real problem, versus,
Yeah.
oh God, is this even something that, especially when you see mad projections of like what the market opportunity is, and you're like, well, there's actually no opportunity, mate. I'm sorry to tell you this. So they're great points.
Oh, it's a horrible problem. I mean, I won't name names, but company I worked at not too long ago, basically hired a whole bunch of sales reps and a whole bunch of different people, and I was leading up this team. And the big thing that wasn't done ahead of time was really addressing how big the TAM was, and what is our ICP within that TAM, which is the bigger question, which a lot of people a lot of times just don't know. They don't know who their best customers are. They haven't done that homework or that research or understand their customer well enough to really know that. They're still
Mm,
figuring it out and trying to gather that data, but that creates such a nightmare for salespeople, for marketers to figure
mm,
out who to go after when you've got such a broad-based ICP. So what it led to is everyone was literally let go within the first 3 or 4 months. So it was like, hey, the numbers aren't coming in. You guys aren't closing deals, and there weren't enough inbound leads to actually support the team. And this is all before I got there, so I didn't know a lot of this was going on. But at any rate, it's a real issue. And then you've got the pressure of investors, right? You've got investors that want you to achieve these
mm,
these crazy goals, because again, when you're raising venture capital, as you probably know, you're buying into that model that you might be that unicorn, or an investor's buying into that model and saying, like, I
mm,
hope you might be one of those companies that just blows it out of the water so I can actually make some money, while the rest of the 90 or 95% of my companies fail or go under, maybe they can have some type of reasonable exit. So then you get a lot of the, and this is especially, prevalent in like the Series A, Series B, when you're trying to get to that 10 million in ARR mark to make your next big raise. And now you've got all this pressure for investors, and you've got all these bad sales and marketing tactics that are being used that we all see all the time, right? Where you've got gated ebooks on LinkedIn where, you fill out the lead form, pass it straight to the SDR team. The SDR is calling you up and saying, hey, like, can we get on 15 minutes to give you a demo? And it's like, that's not the right type of motion there. But because they've got the pressure from a big VC like this, they need to hit these numbers. There's no choice but to, move forward with these things. So it's very challenging. I mean, especially when you raise that type of money.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, you put it, put it really well there. And it's that foundation that's missing, isn't it? It's that all of the work that should have been done at the start, around the TAM, around the market, is just going to create a whole pocket of disaster. And
Totally.
yeah, a delightful environment for everyone involved to be a part of. So in terms of, pushing out of, seed funding and moving forwards, what sort of sales problems do you see after that? So, 50 employees plus, and when they get into that sort of stage again, we can talk about hiring SDRs. That's something that starts to come in then. So yeah, what challenges are typical that you face there?
Yeah, yeah. I think at that point, a big thing that you're starting to face at that stage is, and this is related to sales in a way, but it's more an operational process related problem. And that does affect sales because you need a good sales motion, a good sales process to actually continue to scale. So a lot of these folks have potentially grown just by, a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill. They've got a great product or whatever it may be, but they've gotten so far, but they haven't really built out the right, operational architecture for taking it to the next level. And I see that that's a big issue with a lot of them because, again, everyone's wearing multiple hats, they're doing multiple things. There's still a lot of indirect reports going on, and maybe there's even loose hierarchies with regards to, who reports to who. So you've got all these things that kind of need to be hashed out and figured out, as well as the sales process. And a lot of times, like, a 50-person company, they might have 3, 4, 5 AEs, again, depending on the ACV, depending on the TAM. They probably have maybe 3, 4, 2 or 3 SDRs or something like that at a 50-person B2B SaaS company.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're still really early on. You've got a very small sales org, and that sales process is still developing. So I think a lot of times it's just building up the right processes operationally to make sure that you can scale. And then the other thing too is that I see commonly is, there's really no dedicated sales enablement support to really help salespeople be successful at these later stages where they need more content, they need more customer case studies, they need other things that they can do to win deals, because now likely they've been successful. Other people have seen this. New competitors are now entering the market, right? So now they've got to defend themselves. And what ultimately happens is products is, multiple products kind of come out. You've got some level of headway, but other products are going to converge, and eventually you're going to have very similar products. So then it becomes, how can you differentiate yourself in the market? So I see those two being kind of like the two biggest things. How can you differentiate yourself in the market with new competitors coming up? And then another big one is just how do we make this more of a process, right? It isn't just a fun startup anymore. We need to really get a little more serious because we've got a much bigger organization to figure out how we grow. And there need to be some numbers around that to make sure that that's there. And again, these are just things that, resource constraints, money constraints are just not being done at that stage that need to be to kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. And I think it's very difficult to prioritize, isn't it? Like that's one of the big challenges that I think I've come across is like, where should I focus my time to, and I knowingly that it's always going to give me that return, because sometimes when you're hacking away at things like process related things where there's not like an instantaneous result that you're going to get back, will this even work? You start doing things very hacky and very, you're just rushing, you're just trying things. And I think there's a place for like experimentation, but I think, like you say, the process side of things is really important to establish at that stage, or at least start building and measuring success properly. And then the differentiation is obviously very, very much key. And I think with B2B and SaaS being very crowded, it's something that I think everyone's sort of seeing that the message and the way that you position yourself on that kind of perceptual map with your competitors. It's like you've got to really find an angle and that competitive advantage, because otherwise you've got nothing unique to say. And with nothing unique to say, you're in that cloud of noise, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, exactly. And you mentioned SDRs as well. I mean, I think, the other thing is, when do we actually hire SDRs and A's and start building out that team? And a lot of times what happens is, and a lot of CEOs that have sales backgrounds know the whole math sales function of what they
Mm-hmm.
need to do in terms of hiring AEs to put, say, $1 million quota on their head, and how many leads they need to produce for that AE to actually meet their quota so that the company can ultimately achieve their goals and get to the next level of funding, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing is that a lot of these guys are spending far too much money far too early on expanding this massive sales team and putting a number on people's head before they've actually generated some brand awareness, the proper marketing material, the proper support mechanisms, and also having some level of an inbound lead flow where they've started to get better at understanding, hey, we kind of understand our ICP. Maybe it's not perfect, still working, that's fine. We also have a better idea on messaging and what's working and what's not. And once those things kind of start to come to fruition, then the founder can start saying, all right, great. Now that we have some of these things put together, right? We've got somewhat of a little bit of a marketing team that's generating high intent ICP leads at some predictable type of level. We generally understand our ICP. We've got some messaging we think is going to work. And the founder understands the sales process because he or she has closed a series of deals. So now we feel like we're ready. And that's the thing, that like there's this just rush. Like you get the $3 million, $4 million of funding and you say, all right, well, I got to build a sales team. And I think like that money just needs to be reserved for saying, all right, let's just take a slightly longer approach here and build out the right functions on the marketing side. And I'll be curious on your thoughts on this, but this to me is just the hardest thing to do, I feel like, for so many, because again, the pressure from investors to grow so quickly, and probably maybe advice from them on, hey, you gotta, you read predictable revenue, right? From Salesforce, and you saw how Salesforce grew. We want to do that too. And it's like, no, like that maybe worked then, but we're
Mm-hmm.
we're in a different age, right? That was a decade ago or more. So way more than a decade.
Yeah, I think some of it comes back to the reason why some people start a company, or why a founder starts a company as well, because
Yeah.
um, you could say that I've never been of the kind of rhetoric that build something as fast as possible, as cheaply as possible, and sell to as many people as possible. And I think if that's your kind of view, or that's your mission, and then the mission is to oversell growth or to investors and so on and so forth, I think you're going to end up in a bit of a pickle, aren't you, really? But I think that when it comes to companies, yeah, whether it is overselling like to investors, it's definitely one that you can kind of spot it as well. Like there's certain companies where like you'll look and you'll go, you don't seem to understand the market. You don't seem to have built all of these foundational components. You don't seem too interested in them. You don't really know where you sit against your competitors. There's lots of work that just hasn't been done. Um, so yeah, I think at that sort of stage, it's almost like things can unravel very quickly for people. Um, but in terms of, again, in SDRs, maybe one thing that I thought would be good to pick into is the kind of process of hiring good SDRs, and what you believe, should be done there to make sure you do get that right talent.
So in terms of like what to look for like a good SDR.
Yeah, like traits, attributes, like, again, you see SDRs, again, because they are typically graduates, or they are people
Mm,
fresh into the career.
right.
It can be a difficult hire. It's like, you don't have this, CV or resume with all this experience. So again, it's like, what are you looking for in those, the future sales leaders, I guess, or those SDRs that will really grow and flourish?
For sure, and potentially future marketing leaders, right? I mean, an SDR's path traditionally is to an AE, but it can definitely be to go into marketing. I mean, again, at 50% or more, I think is the last data point I saw are reporting into marketing. So just something to keep in
Mm,
mind there. But yeah, I mean, to your
mm,
point, it's tough. You've got Yeah, usually tenure of an SDR could be right out of college, could have a year or two of experience. So, there's not a lot of like work experience to really pull from. But the things that I looked for back when I was running a team were immediately like, is this person really curious and do they have a lot of questions? Are they trying to really
Mm,
understand my business? Because if they're trying to understand my business in detail, they're going to want to understand other people's businesses in detail.
hmm
And I've done a lot of interviews, and the one thing that always stands out to me, and this is just a pet peeve in general with any hire, but if you don't have any questions during an interview, or very few, to me that just draws a lot of concern. I'm just saying this
mm,
person clearly either just doesn't have that type of curious personality where they're trying to look to learn, or there's something else going on, or maybe they're just not interested in the opportunity. That could also be too, right?
mm,
So I think that curiosity is a big one. Also looking for folks that are coachable. How do they take feedback? Have they had any situations either in school or their last job, if they had maybe a year of experience? Like, what was that like? How did they take feedback? And then what did they then do with that feedback? Like, I'd like to understand that story if they can kind of give me some examples around that. And then the last side of it, I mean, these are just kind of three top of mind ones, but
hmm
a really good listener, someone that's like actively listening, that understands what I just said, is engaging back in the conversation. And again, you'd think like some of these things are just obvious, traits that everyone has, but they're not. And there's just so many people where you walk out of the conversations like, I don't think they even listen to what I had to say. I mean, I don't think they even
mm.
know what we do, and they don't seem interested in understanding what we do. So those are some immediate things that stand out to me.
Yeah, I've worked with some great SDRs that had that passion as well for the industry that we're in, which really helped. And
Yeah,
I feel like the best ones really helped in some respect always coach the prospect as well. Like again, we talked about value earlier and value led content, but when when a prospect kind of needs a bit of not hand holding, if but if you can offer that and that expertise, I always think it really comes across well, because it's very much shifted away from that sales. We talked about like car sales kind of approach, and
yeah.
and you know what that feels like, but it's very different when someone's actually helping you, and it's almost like it's not sales anymore, it becomes something else. And
Yeah.
the SDRs that I've witnessed doing that, I've always been like, yeah, like I love the approach that they've taken.
Well, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I'd say another thing, and I don't know if you saw this, but I, had kind of a different model for the way I thought SDRs could be actually leveraged. And right now, they're generally thought of as, salespeople that make a ton of cold calls and cold emails and set meetings for AEs. And I think the other thing in terms of what I would look for if I was setting up a new type of model with an SDR is actually look for people that have generated some level of content, that have some copywriting experience that they've done in the
Mm,
past. And
mm,
like, why do I say that? Well, one, writing emails is copywriting. So, if someone's a great copywriter, then they're likely going to be good at writing very good emails. In addition to that, you and I had talked about, personal branding and LinkedIn a little bit before we got started. And
mhm,
that's another big aspect that I think even though they're very young and they're just starting out in their career, these people grew up on technology. They understand it probably better than a lot of the CEOs do. They may not have as many connections, as much experience, so on and so forth, but someone that's really good at creating content, telling a story, is definitely, I think, going to be a critical aspect for SDRs. And I think that's got to change eventually. I don't know really any B2B SaaS company doing this right now. It's still the same old model, literally following the playbook from Salesforce way back when. So I think it's just going to take eventually someone that's rebellious, maybe me, to come out with a new model and say, all right, this is what the new SDR is going to do. It's not just going to be someone who cold calls and cold emails all day. They'll do that maybe strategically based on some level of intent, but they're going
mhm.
to spend the majority of their time creating content, providing value, building meaningful connections, and that's going to provide a much better long-term growth trajectory versus some of these short-term tactics that I think are, have varying levels of effectiveness.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing campaigns that with SDRs that have been through things like Vidyard that have been again much more creative and much
Yeah.
more engaging as well. And I think there's definitely opportunity there. And this probably leads well into a piece around outreach, like
Mm.
what for you constitutes a great cold sales outreach, and what should that look like?
For me, it's comes down to two things: relevancy and being timely. And those are not always just easy things to put in a box and just say write relevant messages and be timely, right? Like some of these things are a little bit out of the control, but
Hmm.
the biggest mistake that I see is that there's just a lack of personalization. People rip people apart on LinkedIn. I really don't like it. I think that SDRs are doing a tough job, man. I mean, they're kicking ass. I was in that role before, and it's a tough one in the model that's set up today. So, my hat's off for everyone that's in an SDR role. But I do think that one of the big issues is that people are just sick and tired of being asked for 15 minutes with messages that people just haven't done their homework. They haven't done any research. They haven't really
Mm.
explained why they're reaching out. It's just very general. And there's definitely some companies that are doing this better than others for sure. And Clary, I think if you know Kyle Coleman over there, he's got a lot of great content on writing great cold emails and personalized outreach. I know he's been really trying to help the community of SDRs do that. But to me, that's the biggest thing. And all that does is that drives open rates and reply rates down when you don't, bring that level of personalization to an email, to a call, to whatever medium you're reaching out on. So to me, that's number one. I mean, in and of itself with
Yeah.
SDRs.
What do you think about, I've seen again great stuff through like Loom outreach and again like Vidyard, those kind of
Yeah.
a little bit more, I think again, I suppose creative, but do you think those types of activities kind of trump an email somehow, or do you think they're just different and they should both be used?
No, I think they both should be used. I mean, it's all about pattern interrupt, right? I mean, we're trying to break through the noise and stand out. So when you've
Hmm.
got, for example, my box is probably 95% text-based emails with 3 paragraphs. If someone
Hmm.
drops a video, it's going to stand out. I'm going to remember it. Am I going to reply and agree to a meeting? Maybe not. It depends on if it's relevant, depends on if it's a problem that I'm trying to solve right now. But it gives that person a much better chance of doing something that no one else is doing. So yeah, I think that's a big one. The other thing I see no one taking advantage of is you'll see consultancies like little like 1 person, 5 person consultancies sometimes do this. But after you connect with someone, shooting a little video or just shooting a video. So like literally get out your mobile phone and click the after you connect with someone, click message, and then
Hmm.
record just a little video and send that out. No one does that. But I
Yeah.
bet you if someone did, it would stand out. Again, comes back to is it relevant to me? And is it timely based upon what I'm trying to do? But yeah, 100%. I think a mix of any content is going to help. And then especially if they're creating content on LinkedIn, now what's happened is they've gotten an email. Maybe if the person's a little bit interested, they probably have gone to that person's LinkedIn and or the company's LinkedIn, one or the other. But if they start seeing some relevant content and seeing that they're active, they might be even more likely to respond. So anyway, yeah, video is a great avenue that I think people have yet to really explore.
Yeah, because someone did that to me a couple of weeks ago. Connected, shooting me a video,
Yeah,
and on the screen actually they had my website up. So they
yeah.
instantly, I was like, "What's this guy doing with my website?" So
I
and
love
and
that. That's awesome.
yeah, it was good, and the line was just like Samuel with like an exclamation mark, and I
Uh-huh.
was like, again, because I was like, "What is this?" And I just thought, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. Like he's made me click, and it was relevant. Unfortunately, timing meant that I sent him a message and said, "I loved your outreach, mate. Like great work." Not the right time. So I was going to ask, with outreach in general and timely being a factor, what can people do about that to make sure that they choose those right moments? Is there anything again that you follow or a strategy there?
I think it depends on the product. I mean, I'll give you an example. So I was doing some consulting for a HR-based company, and this company basically what they do is they offer a platform for hiring new talent. So it kind of keeps everything organized in one location, right?
Hmm.
So what they did is they essentially had a whole bunch of people that were going after looking for like funded information off like what are those sites? Any site that has like information on funding. I'm blanking on what they are right now, but any of those sites, and they're getting some of that information. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, I know that you recently just raised some money, and I know that that's going to likely lead to more hiring.
Mm.
So we've got this great platform that's going to allow you to organize all of the different people in our platform and blah, blah, blah. It has AI and some other BS. I don't know everything that it does, but the point is like, that's pretty timely, right? That makes a lot of sense. You're like, yeah, we are going to be ramping up hiring because
Mm.
that's generally what happens after a big funding round. So I think for a product like that, I think that that could be potentially a really great way to go after that. Now, again, with anyone that's funded, usually there's a flurry of outbound emails going out to those companies. So then you've got to work a little harder to stand out, right? But I think that that's definitely one example, but I think it depends on the product. And sometimes you're not going to know. There might not be like a call sign where the company said like, hey, like right now is the right time. I think there's some other tools that you can leverage, like Sixth Sense, for example. You could leverage their intent-based data where they're listening to a whole bunch of different signals on the web, trying to indicate like, hey, this is the right time to reach out. So if you want to spend the money on a tool like that, which they're a little bit expensive. So for an early stage startup, maybe not as easy to do. But for some startups that have a little bit more cash, they probably could make that investment and then at least have some of that data to inform an SDR and A like, hey, this actually is a good time to reach out. But I don't think there's a silver bullet with this one, man. I really don't.
Yeah, I was going to say those tools, my experience has been very expensive. So
Very expensive.
it's not actually, I've not really had much experience with them, to be honest. So I wondered whether there was either a get around or if there was something there. But like you say, there's no silver bullet. It's a matter of pulling the information that you can that's available, doing your research. But sometimes luck in life is, fortune favors. Sometimes you'll send that email and like it's the right time. Sometimes you'll send an email and if you had done it in 3 months time or 6 weeks, different story. But that's how it goes.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, to say a thing on that, I mean, I think that's why, good marketing is so important, right?
Hmm.
Marketing is warming up those people. And again, you look at the buyer journey, and the buyer journey is spending far more time on consuming content, learning, being part of communities. They're not spending as much time talking to sales reps as much anymore. They're only saying like, I want to talk to someone when they're really, truly ready to do something.
Mm.
So again, on the timing front, if you've got a good marketing program running that's educating and building awareness in the market over time, once those people are ready, they'll raise their hand and they will come in and they'll want to talk to you, right? You're not going to have
Mm.
to sit here and play the guessing game of outbound email as much. But outbound email is still an important thing. I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think you can say I've never heard of any company. Maybe there's something out there, but 100%, marketing is where they get all their leads. Maybe for PLG related, companies, but for like a generally like sales-led B2B type of company, you're going to need those types of resources in those complex sales cycles.
Yeah, I think that's that's the challenge, isn't it? Attribution is something that seems to be a very hot topic at the minute around, actually trying to understand what's driving revenue. It's very, very murky waters with B2B because of the complex sales cycle and the stakeholders involved and the conversations that happen behind closed doors and so on and so forth. It may have come in through organic search, but it didn't mean that it was SEO efforts that led to that result. So there's definitely, I think in the marketing world, that's something that you don't need perfection. I don't think you'll ever achieve that, but it is very difficult for people to get that visibility. So in terms of we touched a little bit there onto kind of tools and stuff. Is there any like software and tools that you're using right now, or things that you see as like mission critical to help with sales?
More for our clients or for ourselves?
I'd say actually for clients.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the big ones are, certainly having most of our clients using a combination of HubSpot, Salesforce, sometimes both, which is interesting. Outreach from an outbound sequencing tool. LinkedIn, of course, Sales Navigator. A lot of them, Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense is actually used predominantly in quite a few for
Mhm.
intent-based data for some of the bigger ones, at least. And then, yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, you've got, ad platforms and different other channels in terms of marketing mix, but those are really the key ones. Occasionally there'll be MailChimp and other, like inbound nurturing platforms. We work with a client that has Pardot, a couple of clients that have Marketo. So getting into that realm and Salesforce's marketing tech stack as well.
Mhm.
But I think that again, with majority of our clients at early stage companies, you don't need a big tech stack to get this stuff done. You really
Mhm.
don't. I mean, you need, I think, at the basis like a CRM, a way to email people, and you can do that in either HubSpot or Salesforce. I think HubSpot's frankly a little bit easier, especially for early stage companies. Salesforce is a monster, and honestly, I'm just not a fan of it. So anyway, my opinion there. But at any rate, yeah, those are probably the key ones. There's probably some others I'm forgetting about, but those are the ones we see mostly.
Yeah, I find it interesting when companies use HubSpot and Salesforce. And I know, again, with Salesforce, the experience with that is the customization requirements and the build and everything else. It really is, it drums up quite a bit of budget. And, HubSpot, when I compare the kind of pricing now to, historical pricing, that's really kind of grown as well. And you can see them pushing into that space where actually, you got Active Campaign and other guys coming in to kind of take that younger sort of market, because again, even though HubSpot have kind of offering growth packages and things like that, you can see that the first year might be cheap, but then year 2, 3, 4, 5 are going to be, and you're going to need it then. You need the data then, so you're kind of stuck.
They're very good at upselling you. They're very good at it.
Yeah. And when you're paying for contacts and like you say, it just adds up, doesn't it? But I love HubSpot. Like I say, I think the how easy it is to use and the way that they've built out the reporting. I think like from a sales perspective, the reporting's really improved, and you've got like your custom objects and things like that now. So they obviously know what they're doing and know where they're headed. So yeah, for me, I would agree HubSpot over Salesforce currently. Something that I've seen you touch upon kind of through LinkedIn is the kind of broken get a demo model. And I was just going to ask, how did that kind of start? I mean, it feels to me as though you touched upon earlier a little bit about how the buyer kind of journey and what buyers do now has changed, and it's become more about community or finding information as opposed to this kind of process. So yeah, kind of what's your recommendations to clients on how their get a demo sort of process should work?
So I think the biggest thing that drives me up the wall is when I click the CTA get a demo, and then I wait usually a day before someone gets back to me. If they're really good, sometimes it's just an hour. Then I get it scheduled on the calendar. That takes another couple of days, and then I talk with the SDR, and then they walk me through 15 to 20 minutes of questions that I have to answer to see if I'm good enough to be their client. Once I go through that process, then I need to talk to an AE, of which generally the information that I just gave the SDR is not really passed to the AE. So then I end up getting the same questions asked in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe I get a demo on that first call with the AE. Likely not. A lot of times it's actually then the second call with the AE. And let's just pull back here in reverse. What did I click on? I clicked on I wanted to get a demo. And that was the CTA. That was what I was looking to accomplish. I had already done a lot of research before, because now I have some level of intent, clearly me coming in and saying I want a demo. So that whole process, just to kind of lay it out for you, is what drives me crazy. And I think that, there's a couple of things going on there. I think one is the reason that a lot of SDRs end up qualifying that get a demo is because of the metrics that marketing is actually incentivized on. And most B2B SaaS companies, the CMO is incentivized on more MQLs. That's changing. There's definitely more people that are being compensated on marketing source pipeline, revenue, et cetera. But that's one of the big things that's an issue. And the reason is because you're driving a lot of times in those scenarios poor quality leads, as we were just talking about before, right? So when you drive poor quality leads to the get a demo button, now you've got a huge influx and huge volume of leads that need to be qualified by nature, because we don't want sales to waste their time. So you've got to build this huge SDR team to actually field and understand, like, all right, well, this guy's not a fit, this person is a fit, et cetera, and you go through that game, versus you change the metrics that marketing is incentivized on to only be for marketing source pipeline and ultimately revenue. And sure, yeah, you track the leading indicators, no doubt, but those are the things you're really looking at. Reduce the number of leads that are coming through, make sure they're only high intent ICP leads that are coming into the channel. And now you've got far fewer leads that are coming in, but that convert at much higher rates down through the funnel. So I think that that's something to comment just on the definition of an MQL that I think I actually had a post out last week about that. And then the other thing is give the buyer what they originally wanted. The buyer wanted a demo, so just give it to them. And whether it's an SDR, if someone wants to hold with that model, or frankly, just giving it to the AE to do that type of motion, open up your screen, start giving the demo. You can do discovery at the same time. I think it's definitely important to do some level of qualification. You want to make sure you can really help this client, but you don't also want it to seem like they have to do a lot of work to work with you. So it's all about reducing friction. So to me, that's the way I think about it. And with respects to get a demo, it's about the definition, and it's about giving the client what they want when they ask for it versus sending them through your process, which generally takes a lot of times a week or two before you actually get the demo.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge benefit to driving down those volumes that, are unnecessary volumes when they're not the right ICP. You can start to look at the journey as well that they go on when they go through that process, and actually making it a little bit more sweeter or interesting, and all of the sales enablement that comes with that as well. Like I say, I've working with clients again, and sometimes they've got these demos that they've put together. They're actually really good, video demos, and it's kind of buried somewhere. And I'm like, this should be on the website. When they click get a demo, this is the demo. This is what they want. And when they come in, then they're going to be much more qualified, because they're like, I know what these guys are about. I've seen the platform. I can imagine me using it. That's the, it is frustrating, but at the same time, it's nice to see the opportunities with clients, and then, yeah, if you advise them on those as well.
Oh, I love that. That's a great point. I forgot to mention that. So metadata.io, if you look them up,
Mm-hmm.
they've got under, I think, their feature section, it's a 2-minute demo,
Mm.
ungated, for free. The demo just sits there. So on the note of what you were just saying, I love that idea because if you click on it, you should click on the latest call if you haven't seen it. But it's literally, I think it's Jason is his name, the VP of marketing over there. And it's just Jason walking through, it almost looks like a loom, and he's just
Yeah.
recording this loom, and it's got a little bit of creative around it or whatever, and he's just walking through like a couple of use cases and some very like high level like value points, probably the two biggest
Mm-hmm.
ones where people see a lot of value from metadata. And to me, like it's such a great experience, right? Like when I saw it, I was just impressed, right? Because I could get a little bit of info. I didn't have to wait to talk to a sales rep and go through all these like other hoops. I could get a little bit more information, kind of qualify myself out a bit. And everyone's always worried about this, like, oh, I know I want to talk to them, get the feedback and everything, but you're actually doing more good if you just give them a little bit more information. And if
Mm-hmm.
buyers are pretty smart. I mean, like if they have questions, or there's something that doesn't make sense, they're going to reach out. They're going to say, hey, I didn't really understand this quite yet. Like you mentioned this, but I'm not sure if it does that because I'm trying to
Mm.
solve XYZ thing. So yeah, 100%. I think I mean, if a B2B SaaS can do it, and maybe it's not right for every single company, but I think if you can have that model and generate a little bit of value in a 2-minute demo, I think everyone
Mm.
should have that on their landing page, ungated, by the way, as well.
Yeah, and I love the little bits little bits of like micro copy or things that you can add, takes less than 5 minutes or whatever it is. I think
Yeah.
there's all these little things that just kind of nudge people. And it's like, again, it's kind of a nice little experience. It's like, oh, I'm so used to these long sales processes where I request a demo and SDR, they go through a deck. I haven't seen it yet, pass to an AE. Maybe I'll see it now, but only after 45 minutes of the meeting taking place. Oh, now I'm seeing it. It's so different to just go, look, I'm showing it to you. It's going to take you less than 5 minutes. Yeah. And then you inquire, what you're getting. And I think that friction is removing that friction is really important. In terms of like pricing transparency, what's your thoughts on that? Because, again, for me, I always think it's really important to be very clear and, again, help buyers almost qualify themselves if this is right for them. But some providers, again, some SaaS businesses have much more complicated pricing models. And I just wonder, again, what's your thoughts on that, of whether it's not a suck it up and refine the pricing to the point where it's, you can actually package this up in a way that makes sense to buyers and it's public, or whether it's a case of it's different for some SaaS providers and they just can't provide pricing.
I'd say that they should make their pricing more simple. They should not complicate it. I mean, a complicated pricing sheet, if it's complicated to put online, it's going to be complicated for a sales rep to explain it to a client. So I think the first thing is like, if your pricing model is very convoluted and there's lots of little hoops and features and add-ons and this and it's Chinese menu all over, I mean,
Mm,
you know, you've got to figure out a very, very simple model, because again, the simpler it is, the faster someone's going to understand how to implement and buy and budget for your solution. And that's going to reduce your sales cycle length and likely allow you to win more deals. So I think that's a big thing. I mean, the general comment on pricing transparency, I mean, I'm all for it for almost every scenario. I don't really see any scenario, unless you're doing like custom development every single time and you do not have a scalable solution, whether
mhm.
it's service-based or product-based, doesn't matter. If it's completely custom, maybe I get that, I suppose, but then I'd ask, like, you know, why are you doing that? Why aren't you figuring out a way to package your solution into something that can actually be said like, hey, this is 10K, 15K, and 20K, right? It's just easier. And I think the other thing is, you know, the reason pricing transparency is also so important is because if you're not doing it, your competitors probably putting their prices online. And if
Mhm.
your competitors putting prices online, they just have a huge advantage over you now, because they've
Mm,
just made it easier and more understandable to buy. And yeah, granted, like you probably will qualify some people out, and they'll say, you know what, I can't afford this. This is crazy. There's no way I can, you know, do that. But you know, you're going to focus on the people that actually do see the value, and those are the ones that are going to drive to the funnel to higher conversion rate. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan. I can't really think of too many scenarios where it doesn't. Have you seen any examples or any B2B SaaS companies where you would not put pricing transparently on the website?
no, I mean, it's again for me, I feel like it's just again, it's adding that friction. I think the reasons I've come up across before are things like, yeah, afraid of competitors seeing the pricing. And I'm like, well, when we come up against them in God knows how many deals that go south or otherwise, they've seen it anyway. Like everyone shares this information. It's not like it's a black hole that, you know, prospects or customers keep to themselves. It's like they want to leverage the best deal and they talk to each other. They, you know, they're all in the same industry. So it's to me, like you say, make it simple, remove all of that friction, and be very clear with them. And you know, that's all people want is just clarity. It's like, I mean, I think about today, even when you buy stuff, if you go to Amazon, um, you know, going off on a tangent, but like I think people have too many options. Like if I want to buy a 50-inch TV and I stick that in Amazon, I get, I don't know, 5,000 results. I don't need 5,000 results. I just need like five good ones and I'll
Yeah.
pick all three. So I think less can be actually really powerful and making things simple.
100% always. I mean, a perfect example of that, a user experience that I absolutely love was Lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently, my wife and I are getting a dog, a Vizsla, in April, and we went looking for pet insurance. So I
Mm-hmm.
typed in like pet insurance or something in Google, I think it was. And I'm not one for clicking on ads, which is kind of hilarious. But at any rate, I clicked on the ad, and I probably because I had heard of Lemonade, I think maybe through someone, it sounded familiar. So I clicked on the ad.
Mm-hmm.
I got to a landing page or a homepage specifically for pet insurance. It had a nice little typeform experience. It was creative. It was funny. It was enjoyable going through it. It personalized the experience as I went through it, and you know, literally bought insurance right at the end of it. You know,
Mm.
so hopefully it was the right decision. We'll see. I've never used them before, but you know, it's like that is an incredibly easy process. Now, granted, that's a very much product led. There's no sales motion in there, right? So all this talk of SDRs and A's is not there, but you can take honestly a lot of the learnings from B2C as well as also these product led companies or e-commerce companies, especially because they're very good at reducing friction. I mean, Amazon, of course, has done this very well and is very known for this. So if you can reduce friction for B2B, which B2B seems to love friction. I don't know what it is about it. Like it's just like the more friction they can create, I think the better. It just seems to be, because I think there's just this complex of letting go of control. They still want control. They still want to put the get a quote button on the website so that they can drive
Mm.
leads for the sales reps. You know, they still want to do these same old tactics to give power more to the company. And the thing is that the buyer just doesn't like that anymore. And
Yeah.
again, your point, competitors are gonna, if the competitor can offer a frictionless or a sales process that has less friction in it, they're going to drive way more revenue and way more value to the client. So, you know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, complexity is almost seen as like, I don't know whether, again, vendors, whether in B2B, there's this idea that complex is better, or somehow I'm selling a solution that's, oh, look, look at everything that it does, and making it more complex than it needs to be almost seems to be as if there's more value behind it. But that doesn't really, it's not the way that it's work. We think about tools that I've purchased in the last couple of years that I hadn't used before, like SEMrush would be a good example. And again, it's not a very expensive platform. It's, I don't know, $1,500 or a couple of grand a year, but it was very easy to just purchase. Like that slick process of went on the website, had a look. They actually, I think they gave like a 30-day or 28-day trial. But again, a nice tight short window. So I have to use it and see if there's any value in it. And then, oh yeah, this is actually pretty sick, this tool. And then that's when actually a salesperson kind of got involved, because it was, oh yeah, do you want this? Do you not want it? And promotions and things like that came into, oh yeah, we can give you 20% off and so on and so forth. But it felt like that approach works quite well as well in SaaS. Like sometimes you see companies do longer cycles, which doesn't work so well. If they've got 3 months or things like that. I almost think you have to keep that window tight, don't you? Like for people to engage, there's almost like a psychological thing. Oh, I've got 3 months to mess around with that, or like it's free, I can use it whenever. You want people to use the tool, but again, that process was really simple. It was sign up, get in, and then again purchase, bang in your credit card. So yeah, I think simplicity is very key for B2B, and given that I think that's becoming the standard, and it will become a standard, you can't really afford to be using these old methodologies, old strategies. So it's all going to get left behind. In terms of kind of CEOs and founders, I thought it'd be good to ask, in terms of marketing campaigns and marketing results, you see leaders expecting instant results. So I thought it'd be good to ask kind of, in your experience, how often do you see that, and, how that kind of damages both the buyer and the business? It's something that I've definitely, again, experienced. Almost the sales cycle is seen differently from the marketing cycle, if you get me.
Yeah, completely. That's a good question. It's makes me laugh a little bit. Quite a few. I mean, simple answers. Yeah, quite a few are, have kind of more of a sales background and are looking for that quick hit of adrenaline, that rush of leads or opportunities pipeline, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's generally people that I think just have not either been in marketing or don't understand marketing at a deep level, that also always struggle with this. The idea that it could take potentially 3 months or more to start really gaining traction. I mean, like you think about SEO, right? I mean, SEO is not an overnight game. I mean, unless you get lucky on some keywords or something, this is something that you build up over a long period of time, but that has a very high value if you do it right over a long period of time. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenging conversation, right? I think, it all comes back to just setting expectations right from the beginning with any of these clients and just saying, like, listen, like if you're looking for literally like a bunch of leads tomorrow, I can get you those. The question is, are they going to have intent, and are they going to be in your ICP? And it's like, what's more important, having a whole bunch of leads that don't have intent, that are probably not going to convert at a high rate, that maybe some are in your ICP, some are not? Or is it better to, over time, drive less leads, but try to drive the right types of actions where we're actually creating demand, not just capturing it, and getting more people that are aware of our brand, more people that understand the problems that we solve and the value we provide, so that then, 3, 4, et cetera, months down the line, we've got something that's really providing a lot more value. And you've got people coming in like, oh my God, I want what you guys have. I've been literally seeing a lot of your content over the last 3, 4 months. And the sales reps, you'll feel it from them when this happens. because the sales reps will get on the call and they're like, oh my, these people are just like ready to buy almost. Like I'm barely having to do anything. I mean, that's the type of experience I want a sales rep to have. Like that, literally, it's like a smile on their face. They get off the first call. It's like, that was so easy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, I think, again, in companies doing marketing right, I think that's the reaction. Companies not doing it right and driving, short-term tactics to try to get short-term, numbers filled for the quarter, especially when they're kicking off marketing, potentially in a very early stage company, are the ones that really struggle. And it's like knocking your head against the wall. What's not working here? And it's like what's not working here is all your content is being made to drive a lead immediately. And you need to spend more time because a lot of these early stage companies don't have brand. They're not known in the market. And potentially they're solving a problem that's also, not something that the buyer's even aware that they have a problem of. It's something they've always done. So in those cases, it will take longer to educate the market. So you just have to be prepared to spend a little bit more money to get there. But if you do it right over a period of time, again, you'll have that come back. So it's a challenging one. I don't know. Any tips, any conversations you've had with CMOs where they're like, all right, Sam, I need to see results tomorrow. How do we do that?
Yeah, well, it's like you say, it's very difficult when I think momentum's really important. Like it's about trying to build that momentum up over time and build that trust. And we all know that like most of the market is not ready to buy today. It is just that, 3 to 5%, and I think anyone that doesn't grasp that, you're always going to have a very difficult conversation with, aren't you? It's always going to be, yeah, you're in a bit of a sticky situation. Things like paid channels are obviously very off and on, aren't they? But I also think the results and driving down the CAC costs of those channels still takes time, So you'll sometimes, again, I've experienced this where Google Ads or something will be running for 6 weeks, and it'll be like it's not working, and it's like, well, 6 weeks, what more do you want? Like it's going to take time. There's going to be refinement, optimization. We're looking at, again, message fit as well in terms of who's coming in and the audience. There's lots of factors here to unpick. It's not just throw a lot of money at it and kind of hope that it sticks. If it was that simple, we'd all have, businesses, we'd have 2 or 3 running on the side. I'm sure, like myself, included in that, it takes, a little bit more work than that. And like I say, I think marketing, or anyone that understands marketing, will know the power of like brand and that momentum and how it builds over time. And obviously HubSpot talk about the flywheel now and all, and so does Rand Fishkin and Spark Taro. And it feels to me like, again, that's much more the philosophy of a marketer and the philosophy of someone that, again, wants to build something that will build content that actually, drives buyers and engages them. So I think, I don't think there's any, kind of solution other than, if you don't understand it and you're not willing to, then it's going to be good luck with marketing is kind of the answer, really.
I mean, honestly, those are the times when I just sometimes have to walk away and say, like, I don't know if this is a good fit, I
Yeah.
mean, because if there's a huge, just we're completely not aligned with what we're trying to accomplish here, then yeah, I could make up something and say, all right, yeah, let's do it. And, then we try, it doesn't work. And then I just have a client that's now churned. So that doesn't help anyone, right? So it's like, all right, I'm gonna be brutally honest with you here on how this is gonna work. And again, like I don't have all the answers either, right? Again, a lot of the companies that we work with are, again, early stage companies. A lot of them are kind of, they might be just a product market fit or even pre-product market fit. So in those scenarios, a lot of times, like there's a lot of unknown. I mean, there's stuff to be figured out. There's messaging, positioning. There's potentially still some ICP things that need to be figured out. Hopefully not, if they've done things right from the beginning and really understood their customer and not just built a product and then tried to find customers. But it's not easy, but yeah, you got to know when to walk away and just say like, hey, there's other performance marketing agencies out there that will just drive a bunch of leads, down through your funnel, and you can have fun seeing the number of leads just kind of add up. But do the numbers on what your conversion rate is from lead to customer and come back to me. I guarantee you it'll be like 0.001 something, a fraction of a percent that are actually coming through on that. And it's like, is that the type of way you want to spend your money? So.
Yeah, no, like you say, it's a frustrating one that, you know, I think many of us have probably experienced. So in terms of kind of last question, sort of round things off, what I've been asking people is what's kept them sane through lockdown? Could be anything, but yeah, I thought I'd ask you that as closing question.
Honestly, for me, it's just going out for walks and getting outside. I mean, yeah, we haven't done much. I've been pretty conservative with kind of trying to follow things down to the line. But yeah, I think getting out of the house is important because for me, I'm an outdoors person. So I think that's been the hardest thing, to try to kind of stay inside. I know you guys in the UK have had to stay inside there's been more of a very strict lockdown. In the US, we haven't had anything that's like super, super strict. It's more like wear a mask, try not to go outside and hang out with groups. But I mean, there's definitely plenty of people that are doing those things. So yeah, I don't know. Lots of Netflix, lots of reading, opening the windows, screaming here and there, and letting out some angst. Meditations in the morning, those types of things.
Yeah, walking's definitely the big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously winter's been winter, so dark and cold, and I think that's just made it very difficult. But yeah, I mean, similar. Like I love being in the outdoors, so walking, meditation, yeah, like waking up. You know, we mentioned that. Workouts, I think for me again, I love the gym, and obviously that's been kind of taken away. But fortunately, I've got, you know, kit at home, so just like 3 of those a week, and it's like adapting. And you know, I spoke to a few people about this at the start of the year, and people were kind of confused at how kind of buzzing I was. I mean, obviously I kind of stepped into consulting, and there's lots of new things happening. But I think it was also just like accepting it and just going, well, I'm still really lucky, like that I can watch Netflix, or that I can connect with people through LinkedIn, and that I can do all of this stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think there's a view that it has to be a problem. Yeah, it's not nice, and it's not good for, you know, well-being. You know, we're social creatures. But I don't know, like I think for me it's just been that kind of perspective. And then as much activity, as much moving, just like, yeah, moving's the key, I think, to keeping the brain doing what it needs to do.
100%. I don't know. For me, get out of the house. You just got to get out of the house.
Yeah, exactly. All right then. Yeah, much appreciated. Really good chat, and great to get your thoughts on SaaS and sales, Jonathan. So it's been a great session.
100%, man. We'll have to see you on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Cheers.